The red light over camera 3 came on at exactly 8:59 p.m. Celeste Hart stood behind the glass desk of the most watched political news studio in Washington, D.C., one hand resting on a folder that could end a man's empire, the other curled so tightly beneath the desk that her nails bit half-moons into her palm. Outside the studio windows, rain combed silver lines down the black skyline. The Capitol dome glowed in the distance, pale and untouchable, like a promise no one in this city had ever kept. In her earpiece, her producer whispered, "30 seconds, Celeste." She looked into the camera and felt the strange calm that always came before a storm. Tonight was supposed to be the night she stopped being the woman they underestimated. Tonight, she was not the young journalist who got cut off during press conferences, not the daughter of a dead union lawyer nobody in Washington remembered, not the woman powerful men smiled at right before lying to her face. Tonight she had documents, marriage certificates, bank transfers, blackmail letters, photographs from a private chapel in Virginia, a sealed court filing someone had buried under 3 layers of fake names, and one name at the center of it all, Mateo Verrick, Mafia Boss, shipping magnate, federal ghost. A man who owned ports, judges, senators, and silence. Celeste had spent 8 months chasing him through campaign donations, offshore companies, murdered witnesses, and doors that closed whenever she entered the room. Every source warned her to stop. Every envelope arrived without a return address. Every photograph pushed her closer to a conclusion that felt impossible. Mateo Verrick had secretly married Vivian Calder, daughter of murdered Senator Malcolm Calder, 3 months before Vivian died, in what Washington politely called a tragic accident. Celeste knew better. She breathed in as the countdown reached 10. Across the studio, Congressman Hale adjusted his tie, unaware that Celeste had invited him only to watch his face when she broke the story. Her panelists smiled their polished television smiles. The crew moved quietly under the lights. Then Celeste saw him, not in the studio, not at first. On one of the security monitors near the floor director's station, a black SUV rolled to a stop outside the network building, then another, then 3 more. Her throat tightened. The floor director lifted his hand. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. "Good evening," Celeste said, her voice steady as the red light burned brighter. "I'm Celeste Hart, and tonight, Washington has a secret it cannot afford to keep." The first 5 minutes went exactly as planned. She laid out the timeline with the precision of a blade. Senator Malcolm Calder's murder, his daughter Vivian's disappearance from public life, the sudden creation of a trust fund under a false name, the private chapel outside Alexandria, the offshore account linked to Verrick-controlled shipping routes. Then she held up the certificate. According to documents obtained by this network, Vivian Calder secretly married Mateo Verrick, a man federal prosecutors have tried and failed to charge for more than a decade. Congressman Hale stopped blinking. Celeste looked straight into the camera. Mr. Verrick has never publicly acknowledged this marriage, but tonight, we can confirm the connection between a murdered senator's family and one of the most dangerous organized crime figures in America. The studio shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, but Celeste felt it. The air changed. A camera operator turned his head toward the hallway. The floor director lowered his clipboard. Her producer's breathing snapped in her earpiece. "Celeste," he whispered. "Security just went dark on the 8th floor." She kept her eyes on the camera. "There is one final document," she said, reaching for the folder beneath her hand. "And it raises a question far darker than scandal." A sound cracked through the hallway. Not thunder. Gunfire. The studio exploded into motion. Someone screamed. Lights swung overhead. Congressman Hale dove behind the desk. A camera slammed sideways as crew members scattered. The glass wall facing the corridor fractured with a violent white burst. Celeste froze for half a second, not from fear, but from disbelief. Then armed men in black tactical gear stormed through the broken glass. They did not point their weapons at the congressman. They did not aim at the crew. They aimed at her. Her earpiece filled with static and shouting. A producer yelled for them to cut to commercial. But the red light above camera 3 stayed on. Live. Still live. Millions were watching. Celeste grabbed the folder and ran. A bullet tore through the monitor beside her, showering sparks across the desk. She ducked behind a camera rig, heart pounding so hard it felt like her ribs were trying to break open. Somewhere behind her, a woman sobbed. "Celeste Hart," one of the gunmen shouted. "Drop the file." She clutched the folder tighter. Then the studio doors burst open again. This time, silence entered first. It was impossible, but that was how it felt. Even the gunfire seemed to hesitate. Mateo Verrick walked into the studio like a man entering a room he already owned. He wore a black suit, darkened by rain, no tie, white shirt open at the throat. His hair was slicked back from the storm, his jaw shadowed with stubble, his eyes cold enough to stop blood. Behind him came 4 men in black coats, armed but controlled, moving with the quiet violence of professionals. Celeste had seen photographs of him, surveillance stills, courtroom sketches, long-lens shots outside charity galas and federal buildings. None of them had prepared her for the reality of him. He was not handsome in the safe way television liked. He was dangerous in a way that made the body understand before the mind did. Calm under gunfire, untouched by chaos. A man who could burn down a room without raising his voice. The gunman turned. Mateo did not. His eyes found Celeste behind the camera rig. For one impossible second, he looked almost angry. Not at her, for her. Then a gunman fired. Mateo moved. He crossed the studio floor through shattered glass and smoke, grabbed Celeste by the waist, and pulled her hard against him as bullets cracked against the desk behind them. His body covered hers completely, one arm locked around her back, the other lifting a weapon she had not seen him draw. His men fired once, twice, clean, controlled. The attackers dropped behind the broken set pieces. Celeste pressed both hands against Mateo's chest, trying to push away, but his grip tightened. "Stay down," he said. His voice was low, composed, intimate enough to make terror feel personal. "You're bleeding," she gasped. Not enough to matter. The folder was crushed between them. Her cheek was against his coat. She could smell rain, smoke, and something expensive and dark, like cedar and cold leather. The camera remained pointed at them. The red light glowed. Mateo saw it. So did Celeste. His gaze shifted from her face to camera 3. The studio was a war zone around them. Broken glass, screaming staff, bodies on the floor, smoke crawling beneath the lights. Mateo Verrick stood with one arm around the journalist, who had just exposed his secret marriage to the entire country. He did not deny it. He did not run. He looked directly into the camera, his expression carved from stone, and said, "She is under my protection now." The words detonated louder than the gunfire. By midnight, Celeste Hart's life was over. Not physically, not yet. But the version of her that had walked into the studio believing truth could protect her was gone. Her network suspended her before she even reached a safe location. The official statement called the broadcast an unauthorized and dangerous segment involving unverified materials. Congressman Hale gave interviews, implying she had staged the attack to boost ratings. Federal authorities refused to confirm whether Mateo Verrick had been detained, questioned, or even present. The internet did what it always did when a woman bled on camera beside a dangerous man. It chose a story and sharpened its teeth. Some called her brave, more called her corrupt, a mistress, a mafia plant, a liar who had been protected by the very criminal she claimed to expose. By 1:17 a.m., Celeste's face was on every screen in America beside Mateo's words. "She is under my protection now." By 2:03 a.m., someone posted her home address. By 2:20 a.m., Mateo Verrick's men were waiting outside her apartment in the rain. Celeste found them when she pushed through the back entrance of her building with a borrowed coat over her head and pepper spray in her fist. 3 black SUVs lined the curb like funeral cars. A man stepped from the nearest one. Not Mateo. This man was older, broad-shouldered, with silver at his temples. and an expression that suggested he had never laughed at anything that was not someone else's mistake. "Miss Hart," he said, "you need to come with us." Celeste lifted the pepper spray. "I'm not going anywhere with you. The men who attacked the studio got here before you did." Her breath stopped. He nodded toward the lobby. Through the glass, Celeste saw her doorman slumped in a chair, alive but unconscious, blood dark on his forehead. One of the security cameras hung broken from the ceiling. Her apartment lights flickered on the 9th floor. Someone was inside. The man opened the SUV door. "Mr. Verrick said you would be stubborn. Mr. Verrick can go to hell." The man did not blink. "He said you would say that too." A shot cracked from above. The glass door behind Celeste shattered. She flinched, and the older man grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the SUV as another shot punched into the brick inches from her head. The pepper spray fell from her hand. Rain soaked her hair, her coat, her skin. The SUV door slammed. The vehicle surged into traffic before she could breathe. Celeste twisted toward the rear window. Her building disappeared behind them, swallowed by rain and flashing sirens. "Where are you taking me?" she demanded. "Somewhere they cannot reach you." "Who are they?" The older man looked at her through the rearview mirror. "The people you almost named before the broadcast cut." Celeste's fingers closed around the folder in her lap. She still had it, the final document, the one she had not opened on air, the one that had gotten men sent into a live television studio to kill her. She looked down. A single line stared up from the top page, stamped in blue ink. "Guardianship petition, minor child protected identity." Celeste felt cold spread through her. A child. Vivian Calder had a child. The SUV turned sharply into a private underground garage beneath a building Celeste had never seen from street level. No signs, no doorman, just concrete, cameras, steel doors, and men with quiet eyes. The older man escorted her into an elevator that required his palm, a key card, and a 6-digit code. It opened into a penthouse that felt less like a home and more like a beautiful place, designed by someone who did not believe he deserved comfort. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked over the rain-lashed city. The furniture was black, cream, and severe. A fire burned low in a marble fireplace. On the far wall hung a single painting of a storm-dark sea. Mateo stood beside the windows with his back to her, speaking quietly into a phone. He had changed his shirt, but not enough to hide the bandage beneath his jacket. Blood had seeped through near his ribs. Celeste stopped near the entrance. "Leave us," Mateo said. His men obeyed immediately. The elevator doors closed behind her. Celeste and Mateo were alone above Washington. He ended the call and turned. For a moment, neither spoke. The city flashed behind him, lightning painting his face silver. Celeste lifted the folder. "You knew they were coming." "Yes." Her laugh was sharp and humorless. "You let me go on air. I tried to stop you. You sent anonymous threats. I sent warnings. You sent me photographs of a dead woman's wedding. I sent you breadcrumbs." Her anger faltered. Mateo walked toward her slowly, not because he feared her, but because he wanted her to feel every inch of space closing between them. "You fed me the story," she said. "I fed you what you were ready to find. Why? Because no one else would touch it." She stared at him. "You used me." His eyes darkened. "Yes." The honesty hit harder than a denial would have. Celeste stepped closer, furious now, the folder trembling in her hand. "You watched me risk my career, my reputation, my life. And you were behind it? I watched you refuse to be bought," he said. "I watched you keep digging after your sources vanished. I watched you cry in your car outside the courthouse and go back inside anyway." Her stomach turned. "How long have you been watching me?" Mateo's silence was answer enough. Celeste slapped him. The sound cracked through the penthouse. His head turned slightly. He did not touch his face. He did not grab her wrist. He simply looked back at her with something colder than anger and more dangerous than apology. "You don't get to say that like it's protection," she whispered. "It became protection when they marked you for death. It became obsession long before that." His jaw tightened. There it was. The first fracture in his control. Outside, Thunder rolled across the city. Celeste held up the guardianship document. Who is the child? Mateo's gaze dropped to the page. For the first time since she had seen him walk through Gunfire, something like fear moved behind his eyes. Someone innocent, he said. That's not an answer. It's the only one you get tonight. I exposed your marriage to Vivian Calder. I deserve the truth. His voice lowered. You exposed the safest lie I had. Celeste stared at him. The marriage was a lie? The marriage was real, he said. The reason was not. Then tell me. Mateo stepped close enough that she had to lift her chin to hold his gaze. He smelled faintly of smoke and rain, and beneath it, blood. If I tell you everything, you become more dangerous to them. I'm already dangerous to them. No, he said softly. Right now, they want you dead. If you know the rest, they will make you wish you were. Her pulse hammered. He reached toward her face, then stopped before his fingers touched the bruise forming near her temple from the studio attack. That restraint unsettled her more than violence would have. You need sleep, he said. I need answers. You need to survive the night first. He turned away, and Celeste hated the sudden emptiness his distance created. Mateo. He paused at the sound of his name. Why did you say it on camera? He did not turn around. Say what? That I was under your protection. The fire shifted shadows across the room. Because I wanted every man hunting you to understand something. What? Now he looked back. That if they touch you, I stop being strategic. The safe house had no visible address, no staff, and no softness except a guest room with a locked window and a view of the Potomac dark beneath the rain. Celeste did not sleep. She sat on the edge of the bed with the folder spread open beside her, reading until the words blurred. Vivian Calder, age 28, daughter of Senator Malcolm Calder, murdered during a campaign stop in Baltimore 2 years earlier, publicly vanished after her father's funeral. Privately married Mateo Verrick 3 months later, dead 6 months after that in a car explosion near Georgetown. Celeste had known all of that. What she had not known was that 6 weeks before Vivian's death, a sealed petition had been filed for emergency guardianship of a child identified only as AC Calder, Verrick. There were medical forms, trust amendments, travel documents, and a photograph tucked between 2 pages. A little girl stood in a garden beside Vivian Calder. Dark curls, serious eyes, 4 years old, maybe 5. Vivian was smiling, but her hand gripped the child's shoulder too tightly, as if she feared someone might snatch her away. On the back of the photo, written in blue ink, were 3 words. If I disappear. Celeste felt her throat close. A soft knock came at the door. She grabbed a lamp like a weapon. The door opened anyway. Mateo stood in the threshold, one hand braced against the frame. He had removed his jacket. His white shirt was rolled at the sleeves, exposing black ink across his forearms. Roses, dates, Latin script, a small bird cage near his wrist. His face looked paler now. You should be in a hospital, Celeste said. I've been shot before. That's not medical advice. I didn't come for advice. Then why are you here? His gaze moved to the photograph in her hand. The room seemed to tighten around them. Who is she? Celeste asked. Mateo was quiet for so long she thought he might refuse again. Then he said, her name is Amara. Celeste looked down at the child's face. Vivian's daughter? Yes? Yours? No. Something in her chest eased, and she hated herself for noticing. Mateo noticed too. A faint, bitter curve touched his mouth. Careful, Miss Hart. That looked like relief. It looked like information. It looked human. She set the photograph down. Who is Amara's father? A man named Daniel Reese. He was a senior aide to Senator Calder. Celeste knew the name. Daniel Reese had died of a supposed overdose 3 weeks after Senator Calder's murder. Daniel found proof that defense contracts were being laundered through shell companies tied to Senator Elias Crane, Mateo said. Crane found out. Calder tried to go public. He was killed. Daniel hid the evidence with Vivian before they killed him too. And Vivian came to you. She came to the only monster powerful enough to scare the other monsters. Celeste swallowed. Why marry her? So I could move her money, secure guardianship rights, and keep federal agencies from handing her back to the people hunting her. You expect me to believe you married a senator's daughter out of kindness? No. His eyes hardened. I married her because Malcolm Calder saved my younger brother from a federal frame 10 years ago. I owed him a debt. And Amara? His expression changed. Barely, but Celeste saw it. The coldness did not vanish. It bent around pain. Amara was 3 when she watched her mother die. The room went silent. Celeste looked at the photograph again, and the story she had built on air began to collapse in her hands. She had not exposed a mafia scandal. She had exposed a child's hiding place. Her voice came out smaller. Where is she? Safe. Does Crane know? He suspects. And the final document proves she exists. Yes. Celeste closed her eyes. All those months, all those clues, every anonymous envelope, every late-night file drop. Mateo had led her toward the truth, but not the whole truth. He had wanted Crane exposed without Amara's name becoming public, and she had almost said it live. I didn't know, she whispered. I know. The softness of his answer hurt more than accusation. Celeste looked up. You should hate me. I tried. The air between them shifted. He should not have said that. She saw it in the way his hand curled against the doorframe, the way his gaze moved from her eyes to her mouth and away again, like discipline was a physical wound. You tried? She asked. His voice was quiet. For months. Her pulse changed. Mateo stepped back first. They will come again, he said, control returning like armor. Crane will deny everything. Your network will abandon you. Federal police will pretend to investigate while leaking your location to men with cleaner guns. And you? I will keep you alive, because I have the document. His eyes held hers. At first. He left before she could answer. By morning, Washington had turned Celeste into a national disease. Her phone, returned to her after Mateo's people swept it for trackers, held 400 missed calls, 2,000 messages, and 17 voicemails from her mother in Ohio, each one more terrified than the last. Her network fired her at 9:06 a.m. At 9:11, the FBI announced an investigation into possible media collusion with organized crime figures. At 9:30, Senator Elias Crane appeared on television in a navy suit and grief-polished expression. Celeste watched from Mateo's penthouse kitchen with cold coffee in her hand. Crane looked like Washington respectability made flesh. Silver hair, square jaw, American flag pin. The kind of man who spoke in committee hearings as if every sentence had been carved above a courthouse. What we witnessed last night, Crane said, was not journalism. It was a criminal spectacle. I have full confidence federal law enforcement will determine whether Miss Hart knowingly participated in a dangerous misinformation operation. Celeste laughed once. It sounded broken. Mateo stood behind her, silent. Crane continued. As for these grotesque insinuations regarding the Calder family, I knew Vivian Calder. She was a troubled young woman, exploited by dangerous men. Mateo's coffee cup cracked in his hand. Celeste turned. Dark liquid spilled across his fingers. A shard had cut into his palm, but he did not seem to feel it. He knew her? Celeste asked. Mateo set the broken cup down carefully. He tried to buy her. The television cut to footage of Celeste in the studio. Mateo's arm around her, his body shielding hers. She is under my protection now. The clip played again, and again. Each replay made the moment look less like survival and more like possession. Celeste turned off the screen. He's framing me as your accomplice. He's framing you as mine. There's a difference? Yes. Mateo looked at her. An accomplice can be prosecuted. Mine can only be taken from me. The words landed with dangerous intimacy. Celeste should have recoiled. Instead, she felt heat crawl up her neck. That's not romantic, she said. I didn't say it was. No, you said it like a threat. It is. To whom? His gaze dropped to the cut on his hand, then returned to her. Everyone but you. Before she could answer, the elevator opened. The older man from the SUV entered. Mateo, we found the leak. Mateo's entire body changed. Nothing dramatic. No raised voice. No sudden movement. But the room lost oxygen. Who? The man glanced at Celeste. Mateo did not. Say it. Bastian. For the first time, Mateo looked truly still. Celeste knew the name from her research. Mateo Verrick. Mateo's cousin. Public face of Verrick Logistics. Charitable donor. Smiling man at embassy dinners. He sold the studio route to Crane's people, the older man said. And he's asking for a meeting. Mateo's smile was terrible. Is he? Celeste stepped forward. No. Both men looked at her. She hated that her voice shook. She spoke anyway. You can't go to a meeting arranged by the man who helped send killers into a live studio. Mateo studied her. You're giving orders now? I'm pointing out the obvious. Bastian won't shoot me in public. You mean he won't shoot you himself? Something almost approving flickered in Mateo's eyes. The older man murmured, She's not wrong. Mateo's gaze did not leave Celeste. Would you like to come then? No. Good. I'm coming. His expression darkened. Absolutely not. You used me to expose Crane. You don't get to lock me in a luxury cage because the story became inconvenient. It became lethal. It was lethal before I knew your name. You knew my name for months. I knew a file. I didn't know you were the kind of man who watches women cry in cars. His jaw tightened. The older man suddenly looked fascinated by the wall. Mateo stepped closer. You want to come because you think journalism is courage, he said. It isn't. Courage is knowing when your life matters more than a headline. Celeste stepped closer too. And control is knowing the difference between protection and fear. His eyes sharpened. For a moment, she thought he might touch her. His hand lifted slightly, then stopped, hovering near her jaw, as if his body had betrayed him before his mind could allow it. He lowered it. You stay beside me, he said. You do exactly what I say. And if I tell you to run, you run. No. No? If you tell me to run, I decide if you're worth leaving. His expression changed so quickly she almost missed it. A crack. Small. Devastating. Then Mateo turned away. Get her a coat. The meeting took place that night beneath Union Station, in a private club hidden behind a locked service door and a corridor that smelled of stone, old trains, and expensive whiskey. Celeste walked beside Mateo through a room full of men who pretended not to stare at her. The club was carved out of old Washington bones, vaulted ceilings, brass lamps, velvet booths, oil paintings, guards at every entrance. Beneath the city where laws were written, men who owned the law drank in silence. Mateo's hand rested lightly at the small of Celeste's back, not enough to claim, enough to warn. Every gaze that lingered on her moved away when it met his. You don't have to do that, she whispered. Yes, I do. Touch me like property? His mouth did not move, but his eyes did. If they believe you are property, they won't realize you are evidence. That's supposed to make me feel better? No. At the back of the club, Mateo Verrick rose from a booth with a smile that belonged on campaign posters and betrayal letters. He was handsome in an easy, polished way Mateo was not. Where Mateo felt like a locked door, Bastian felt like one opened just enough to invite disaster. Cousin, Bastian said. You brought the journalist. Bold. Mateo pulled out a chair for Celeste. She sat, though every instinct screamed not to. Bastian's eyes moved over her face. Celeste Hart, America's fallen angel of journalism. She smiled without warmth. Mateo Verrick, America's favorite tax-deductible criminal. His smile widened. Mateo did not smile at all. Why did you sell the studio route? Mateo asked. Bastian sighed. Straight to murder. You always skip the family part. Oh, he said softly. That wasn't business. Mateo's hand tightened around his glass. Bastian leaned back. Crane wants the file. He's willing to trade. For what? Amara. Celeste felt Mateo go motionless beside her. Bastian continued. Don't look so dramatic. The girl is a liability. Crane gets her, the documents disappear, and we stop living under the shadow of a dead senator's mistakes. She's 6 years old, Celeste said. Bastian looked at her as if he had forgotten she could speak. And you are unemployed. Mateo moved so fast, Celeste barely saw it. 1 second, Bastian was smiling. The next, Mateo had him by the throat against the booth, a knife pressed beneath his jaw. No shouting, no chaos, just a sudden, absolute violence that made the entire club freeze. Speak to her like that again, Mateo said quietly, and I will remove your tongue in front of men who will applaud because they're afraid not to. Bastian's smile trembled. Celeste should have been horrified. Part of her was. Another part, darker and more honest, felt the terrifying warmth of being defended by a man who did not care who saw his weakness, if the weakness was her. Mateo released him. Bastian coughed, rubbing his throat. You think she cares about you? She built her career on your ruin. Mateo glanced at Celeste. Something in his expression said he had already told himself the same thing. Bastian saw it and struck harder. She will publish Amara the second it saves her reputation. Celeste stood. No, I won't. Because you're noble? Because I know what it's like to have your life turned into someone else's story. The words came from somewhere old, her father's death, the headlines calling him unstable after he exposed corruption, the men who made his reputation bleed because they could not kill the truth fast enough. Mateo's gaze shifted to her, sharp and searching. Bastian laughed softly. How touching. Celeste looked at Mateo. We're done here. For once he obeyed without argument. They were halfway to the exit when the lights went out. A scream tore through the club. Then gunfire opened from the balcony. Mateo shoved Celeste behind a marble pillar as bullets shattered bottles across the bar. Men shouted. Glass rained. The old underground room turned into muzzle flashes and panic. Celeste crouched, heart slamming. Mateo pressed against her, one hand braced beside her head, the other firing into the dark. She could feel the heat of him, the controlled rhythm of his breathing, the way his body placed itself between her and every possible angle of death. Are you hit? He demanded. No. His eyes scanned her face anyway. A bullet struck the pillar, spraying stone dust across her cheek. Mateo flinched, then went very still. Not fear for himself. Fear because the stone had touched her. Mateo, she whispered. He looked down at her. For one suspended second, the gunfire faded behind the unbearable closeness of his face, inches from hers. His hand rose to brush dust from her cheek. This time, he touched her. Only with his thumb. Only once. But Celeste felt it everywhere. Then someone yelled, "Back exit!" Mateo grabbed her hand and ran. They escaped through a service tunnel beneath the station, chased by footsteps and bullets echoing through concrete. Mateo's men closed ranks behind them. The older man, Mateo called him Dario, took a round in the shoulder and kept moving. At the tunnel's end, a black SUV waited in the rain. Celeste climbed in, breathless, soaked, shaking. Mateo followed, slammed the door, and immediately reached for her face. "Look at me. I'm fine. Look at me." His voice was different, not calm, not cold, fractured. Celeste turned. His hands hovered near her temples, her jaw, her shoulders, checking without fully allowing himself to hold her. His eyes were too intense, too exposed. "I'm fine," she said again, softer. His hand stopped against the side of her neck. Her pulse beat beneath his fingers. The SUV sped through the wet streets. Mateo stared at the place where his thumb touched her skin. "You should not have come," he said. "You asked me to. I was testing you. I failed? No." His voice was rough. "That is the problem. Celeste should have pulled away. She did not." He leaned closer, just enough for her breath to catch. Then his phone rang. The moment broke. Mateo answered, his expression hardening with every word. When he hung up, the man who had almost touched her in the dark was gone. "What happened?" Celeste asked. Mateo looked out at the city. Crane found Amara. The child was hidden in a house on the Chesapeake, a white clapboard place at the end of a private road, lined with winter bare trees and security cameras disguised as birdhouses. They arrived before dawn. The sky was gray. The water beyond the house moved like hammered steel. Black SUVs formed a wall around the property while Mateo strode up the porch steps with Celeste behind him, fear making every breath too shallow. Inside, the house smelled like pancakes and crayons. That was what broke Celeste. Not the guards, not the guns, not the coded locks. The crayons. A child lived here. A real child. Someone with drawings taped to the refrigerator and small shoes beside the door. A woman in her 50s met them in the hallway, pale with panic. They tried the south gate 20 minutes ago. We stopped them, but she heard. "Where is she?" Mateo asked. "Closet." His face changed. He walked down the hall and stopped outside a bedroom painted soft yellow. Celeste stayed near the doorway. Mateo opened the closet slowly. Inside, behind a row of hanging dresses, a little girl sat curled around a stuffed rabbit. Dark curls, serious eyes. Older than the photograph now, but unmistakable. "Zio Mateo," she whispered. The words cut through him. Celeste saw it. He crouched, still in his blood-marked shirt from the club, still carrying the violence of the night on his shoulders, and held out one hand. "I'm here, Piccola." Amara crawled into his arms. He closed his eyes as he held her. Not long. Only a second. But in that second, Celeste saw the truth no document had captured. This feared, cold, dangerous man loved this child with a devotion so complete, it terrified him. Amara looked over his shoulder at Celeste. "Is she the TV lady?" Celeste's throat tightened. "I'm Celeste. You made Uncle Mateo angry." Despite everything, Celeste almost smiled. "I think I do that a lot." Amara considered this. He gets quiet when he's angry. Celeste glanced at Mateo. "I noticed." Mateo stood with the child in his arms. "Pack only what matters." Amara looked at him. "Is Mommy's box coming?" His jaw tightened. "Yes." Celeste looked between them. "What box?" Mateo did not answer, but Amara did. "The box Mommy said tells the truth." They moved quickly. Dario, arm bandaged, coordinated the guards. The caretaker packed clothes, medicine, and a small silver music box from beneath a loose floorboard in Amara's room. Celeste watched Mateo take the box like it weighed more than gold. "What is inside?" she asked. "Vivian's insurance. Against Crane? Against everyone." Before he could open it, a guard shouted from outside. Headlights cut across the windows. Not one car. A convoy. Mateo's men moved into position. Celeste grabbed Amara's hand, pulling the girl behind a kitchen island as bullets tore through the front windows. The house erupted. Glass burst inward. Wood splintered. Someone screamed. Mateo fired from the hallway, face calm and deadly, every movement exact. But there were too many. Smoke rolled under the door. "They're setting the porch on fire!" Dario shouted. Mateo looked at Celeste. No time, no softness. "Take her to the cellar." "What about you, Celeste?" The way he said her name stopped her. Not an order. A plea he would never admit. She grabbed Amara and ran. The cellar door was hidden beneath a rug in the pantry. Celeste pulled it open and guided Amara down the narrow stairs as smoke thickened above them. The child clutched the music box to her chest. "You're okay," Celeste whispered. "Stay with me." "Is he going to die?" The question nearly split her open. "No," Celeste said, with more certainty than she felt. "He's too stubborn." The cellar was damp and dark, lit by one emergency bulb. Celeste found the reinforced exit door Mateo's caretaker had mentioned and punched in the code. Wrong. She tried again. Wrong. Amara began to cry silently. Above them, the fight grew louder. A body hit the floor. Footsteps pounded overhead. Celeste looked at the keypad, then at the music box. "Amara," she said carefully, "did your mom ever give you numbers to remember?" The child sniffed. "She sang them. Can you sing them for me?" Amara's voice trembled as she sang a tiny, broken melody. 4 numbers repeated at the end. Celeste entered them. The lock clicked. Cold air rushed in from the escape tunnel. They ran into the dark. The tunnel opened near the shoreline, where reeds bent under the wind. Rain had started again, thin and icy. Celeste pulled Amara toward a boathouse at the edge of the property. Then a man stepped from the shadows. Bastian. His coat was wet. His smile was gone. "Give me the girl," he said. Celeste pushed Amara behind her. "No." He lifted a gun. "You are making the mistake women like you always make," Bastian said. "You think being brave changes the ending." Celeste's hand tightened around Amara's. "No," she said. "I think it changes who has to live with it." Bastian aimed at her chest. A shot rang out, but it did not come from Bastian's gun. He staggered, dropping to one knee, blood spreading across his shoulder. Mateo emerged from the rain behind him, like vengeance made human. His face was cut. His shirt was soaked with blood and rain. Fire glowed behind him from the burning house, casting him in orange and black. "Step away from them," Mateo said. Bastian laughed weakly. "Them?" Mateo's gun did not waver. Bastian looked at Celeste, then back at him. "You're ruined," he spat. "You chose a child and a journalist over your own blood." Mateo's eyes were empty of mercy. "No," he said. "I found out what blood was worth." Bastian reached for his fallen gun. Mateo fired. Celeste turned Amara's face into her coat before the child could see. Bastian fell into the wet grass. Mateo stood there, breathing hard, his weapon lowered. For several seconds, no one moved. Then Amara broke from Celeste and ran to him. Mateo caught her with one arm, but his eyes were on Celeste. The burning house roared behind him. Rain fell over his bloodied face. The little girl clung to his neck. And Celeste understood the tragedy of him. He had built an empire to become untouchable. Then he had spent years secretly protecting the only people who could destroy him. By sunrise, they were in a safe house deep in the Blue Ridge Mountains, hidden behind locked gates, pine trees, and fog. It was nothing like the penthouse. This place was old stone and warm wood, with a library full of books, a kitchen that smelled of coffee, and windows looking out over endless gray hills. For the first time since the broadcast, the world felt distant. Amara slept upstairs with Dario's wife watching over her. Mateo stood alone in the library, shirt open as a doctor stitched the wound along his ribs. He refused pain medication. He did not refuse Celeste when she entered. The doctor left them with bandages and instructions Mateo would probably ignore. Celeste stood near the fire, holding Vivian's music box. "You should open it," Mateo said. She looked at him. "You trust me with it?" "No." The answer should have hurt. Then he added, "But I want to." She set the box on the desk and opened it. The music was soft, tinny, a lullaby warped by age. Beneath the velvet lining was a flash drive, a key, and a folded letter addressed to Amara. Celeste touched the drive. "This is the proof. It names Crane, his shell companies, the judges, the federal agents, the rival family he hired. Everything. Then why didn't you release it?" "Because the moment I did, Amara became the last living witness tied to the chain." Celeste turned toward him. "And now?" "Now Crane knows she exists. Waiting protects no one." The fire cracked between them. Celeste thought of the studio, the folder under her hand, her voice saying scandal when the truth had been sacrifice. She thought of her father, and all the times she had believed exposure was justice. Sometimes exposure was a match. Sometimes people burned because you lit it too soon. "I can release it," she said. Mateo's gaze sharpened. "You have no network. I don't need one. You have no protection." She looked at him. He smiled faintly, without warmth. "Besides me, I have the raw broadcast. I have the document chain. I have sources who will talk if they know the evidence is public. I can publish independently and send mirrored files to every major newsroom before Crane can bury it. He will come for you. He already came for me. He will come harder. Then we make sure America is watching when he does." Mateo stared at her for a long moment. "You're not afraid enough," he said. "I am terrified." "No," his voice softened. "You are brave. It keeps confusing me." Something in her chest tightened. He walked closer, slowly, as if approaching a truth more dangerous than any gunfight. You asked me why I said it on camera. Celeste barely breathed. You answered. No, I gave you the part that made me sound in control. And the other part. He stopped in front of her. The fire painted gold across the hard lines of his face. Without the suit jacket, without the men around him, without Washington watching, he looked younger. More wounded, still dangerous, but no longer unreachable. The other part, he said, is that when I saw them aiming at you, something in me stopped negotiating with the world. Celeste's throat tightened. Mateo, I don't love gently, he said. I don't know how. I protect like a prison. I want like a sin. I have spent my life turning every feeling into a weapon because weapons survive longer than men. She should have stepped back. She did not. His hand rose to her face. This time, he did not stop. His fingers brushed her jaw with impossible care. You should run from me, he whispered. Celeste looked at the man who had used her, saved her, lied to her, trusted her, frightened her, and stood between her and death until the whole country saw it. I tried, she said. You kept sending clues. A broken sound almost left him. Not a laugh, not a sob. Something in between. Then he leaned down and touched his forehead to hers. It was not a kiss, not yet. It was worse, more intimate. A surrender with no witnesses. Celeste closed her eyes. For one breath, the danger outside could not reach them. Then Dario entered without knocking. Crane knows we're in Virginia. Mateo pulled away at once, the weapon returning behind his eyes. Celeste picked up the flash drive. Then we go live again. At 8:59 p.m. the next night, Celeste Hart sat in front of a camera again. Not in a studio, in the library of a mountain safe house, with rain striking the windows, and Mateo Verrick standing just outside the frame. The setup was simple. One camera, one laptop. One mirrored upload system built by a terrified former network producer who still believed in her enough to risk prison. Celeste wore no designer dress, no studio makeup, no earpiece, only a black sweater, a healing bruise near her temple, and the expression of a woman who had nothing left to lose except the truth. The live stream opened to 40,000 viewers, then 400,000, then 3 million. Celeste looked into the lens. My name is Celeste Hart. 24 hours ago, I reported that Mateo Verrick secretly married Vivian Calder, daughter of murdered Senator Malcolm Calder. That report was incomplete. The chat blurred too fast to read. She continued. The marriage was real, but it was not a criminal conspiracy. It was a protection arrangement after Vivian Calder and her daughter became targets of a network involving Senator Elias Crane, defense contractors, federal officials, and organized crime intermediaries. Outside, Mateo listened without moving. Celeste uploaded the first document, then the second, then the bank records, the photographs, the sworn statement, Vivian's video. That was the one that changed everything. On screen, Vivian Calder appeared alive, pale, terrified, sitting in what looked like a motel room. If you are watching this, Vivian said, voice shaking, then I am dead, or I have disappeared. Senator Crane killed my father. Daniel Reese found the money trail. They killed him too. My daughter's name is Amara. Mateo Verrick is not her father. He is the only reason she is alive. Celeste felt tears burn her eyes, but she did not look away. Vivian continued. Do not let them turn him into the story. Follow the contracts. Follow the judges. Follow Crane. The livestream view count passed 9 million. Then the power went out. The library plunged into darkness. For 1 second, there was only rain. Then Mateo grabbed Celeste and pulled her to the floor as gunfire shattered the windows. The room erupted into glass and wood. The livestream camera fell sideways but kept broadcasting, tilted toward the floor, capturing shadows, screams, muzzle flashes, and Mateo Verrick's hand closing around Celeste's wrist. Move! He shouted. They ran through the dark house as Crane's men breached the lower floor. Dario's men returned fire from the hallway. Somewhere upstairs, Amara cried out. Celeste turned toward the stairs. Mateo caught her. Dario has her. I heard her. He has her. She's scared. So are you. That doesn't mean I leave her. Mateo's face changed in the dark. Then he cursed softly, grabbed her hand, and ran upstairs with her. They found Amara in the East Hall, separated from Dario by smoke and gunfire. Celeste reached her first, pulling the child into her arms as bullets tore through the banister. Mateo stood over them, firing down the stairwell with cold precision. "This way," he ordered. They escaped through a hidden passage behind the library shelves, emerging into an underground garage carved into the mountain. One SUV waited. One. Dario shoved Amara inside. "Go." Mateo pushed Celeste toward the door. She stopped. Crane stood at the far end of the garage with a gun in his hand, and 3 men behind him. He looked nothing like television now. No flag pin, no polished grief, just rage wearing an expensive coat. "Verrick," Crane called. "You always did have a weakness for doomed women." Mateo stepped in front of Celeste. Crane's eyes moved to her. "Miss Hart, you could have been remembered as a journalist. Now you'll be remembered as his mistake." Celeste's hand closed around the phone in her pocket. The live stream was still running. The camera was black, but the microphone was alive. She pressed it open. "Senator Crane," she said loudly, "are you denying Vivian Calder's statement?" Crane smiled. Vivian was a frightened girl who should have handed over the child when she had the chance. Mateo went still. Celeste's blood turned cold. Crane continued, too angry to see the trap. "Her father should have taken the money. Daniel Reese should have kept his mouth shut. And you should have stayed pretty behind a desk instead of playing martyr." Celeste lifted the phone. The live stream comments exploded across the cracked screen. Crane saw it. For the first time, fear crossed his face. Mateo smiled. It was the most dangerous expression Celeste had ever seen. Sirens wailed somewhere beyond the mountain gates. Not local police, federal marshals, journalists. Every newsroom in America had been watching. Crane lifted his gun toward Celeste. Mateo moved before the shot. He took the bullet meant for her. The impact drove him back, but he did not fall. He fired once, striking Crane's hand. The gun clattered across the concrete. Dario's men surged from the side entrance. Crane's guards dropped their weapons as floodlights filled the garage, and federal agents shouted commands. Celeste caught Mateo as his knees finally hit the ground. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." His blood spread warm beneath her hands. Amara screamed from inside the SUV. Mateo looked at the child first, then at Celeste. "Is it live?" he asked. She let out a broken laugh through tears. "That's what you're worried about?" His mouth curved faintly. "I prefer witnesses. Stay with me." His eyes searched her face, and there it was. The thing he had hidden under power, under violence, under control. Fear, not of death, of leaving her. Celeste pressed both hands harder against the wound. "You do not get to walk through Gunfire on national television, ruin my career, make me fall in love with you, and then die in a garage." His breath caught. Even bleeding, even pale, even surrounded by sirens and shouting men. Mateo Verrick looked at her like she had just handed him something more dangerous than a loaded gun. "You love me?" Celeste cried harder. Unfortunately, his eyes softened. Completely this time. No armor, no denial. "Celeste," he whispered, "I was gone the moment you looked into a camera and told the truth, even though your hands were shaking." The paramedics reached him then. They pulled him from her arms, and for the first time in his life, Mateo Verrick let strangers save him because Celeste Hart was watching, and he had promised without words that he would not leave her with another dead story. 3 weeks later, Washington pretended it had always wanted the truth. Senator Elias Crane resigned from the Senate in custody. 6 federal officials were indicted. 2 judges stepped down before dawn raids could reach their homes. Defense contractors hired crisis teams. Networks that had called Celeste reckless now invited panels to discuss her courage. Her old network offered her job back. She declined on live television. Then she launched her own investigative platform and named the first series The Calder Files. The first episode opened not with Mateo, not with gunfire, not with scandal, but with Vivian Calder's voice saying, "Follow the contracts." Amara entered federal protective custody under a new identity. Though everyone who mattered knew she spent weekends at a heavily guarded house in Virginia, where Dario's wife taught her to bake, and Mateo pretended not to know there was glitter on his suit jackets. As for Mateo, the world did not know what to do with him. He was still dangerous, still feared, still a man prosecutors watched carefully and enemies crossed streets to avoid. But now America had seen him bleed for a journalist on live television. Twice. That complicated the myth. Celeste visited him at his waterfront estate on a cold evening in early spring, when cherry blossoms had just begun to open across the city. The house stood behind iron gates at the edge of the Potomac, all limestone, dark glass, and quiet security. She found him on the terrace, one hand in his pocket, the other resting near his healing ribs. "You missed your interview," she said. "I don't give interviews. You gave one when you told America I was under your protection. That was a warning. It became a headline." He turned. The sunset touched his face, softening nothing and revealing everything. Celeste walked closer. "My platform hit 10 million subscribers. I know. Of course you know. I have people. You mean spies. I mean people who understand that your comment section is a threat environment." She smiled despite herself. His gaze lingered on it, like he had not yet earned the right to enjoy it. For weeks, he had kept distance. Not absence. Never absence. Flowers arrived without cards. Security appeared without discussion. Documents landed in her encrypted inbox at 3 in the morning. When she worked too late, food came from restaurants that did not deliver. When she called, he answered on the first ring. But he had not touched her since the garage. Not her hand, not her face. Not even when the doctors cleared him. Celeste stopped in front of him. "You're avoiding me. I'm protecting you. From what?" He looked out at the river. "Me." The answer hurt because he meant it. Celeste stepped into his line of sight. "Mateo." His eyes closed briefly. She understood then. The great Mateo Verrick, who walked through bullets and threatened senators and terrified rooms into silence, was afraid of wanting something he could not control. Her. "You don't get to decide that loving you is too dangerous for me," she said. His eyes opened. "I know what you are. I know what you've done. I know there are parts of your life I may never be able to forgive easily, but I also know what you protected when no one was watching. I know you kept a child alive. I know you let the world call you a monster because the truth would have put her in danger." He said nothing. So Celeste reached for his hand. This time, he was the one who trembled. Barely, but she felt it. "I am not asking for gentle," she said. "I'm asking for honest." His fingers closed around hers, slowly, carefully, like he feared his own strength. "Honest?" he asked. "Yes." His gaze dropped to their joined hands. "I think about you in every room before I enter it," he said. "I count exits because of you. I hate every camera that sees you before I do. I have threatened men for saying your name too softly. I have rewritten my entire empire around the possibility that one day you may need to walk away from me safely." Celeste's breath caught. He looked at her then, fully. "And if you stay, I will spend the rest of my life trying not to turn love into a cage." The river moved dark and silver below them. Celeste lifted her free hand and touched his face. "You'll fail sometimes. Yes, I'll call you out. I know. You'll hate that. I already do." She smiled. This time he let himself smile back. Small, devastating, real. Then he bent his head and kissed her. It was not soft at first. It was restrained fire, weeks of terror and denial, and almost loss breaking open in silence. His hand came to her waist, careful of asking, incapable of not needing. Celeste stepped closer, and the last space between them disappeared. The kiss deepened, but it never became careless. That was what undid her. This man, who could command violence with a glance, held her like trust was something sacred enough to frighten him. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "No more live broadcasts without me," he murmured. Celeste laughed softly. That sounded like an order. It was a request. "You're terrible at those." I'll practice." Behind them, inside the house, Amara's voice called from the doorway. "Are you kissing?" Celeste froze. Mateo closed his eyes, like a man accepting divine punishment. Dario, somewhere inside, laughed once, and quickly pretended he had not. Celeste turned, cheeks warm. "Maybe." Amara considered them with solemn authority. "Good. He was sad when you didn't come over." Mateo opened his mouth. Celeste squeezed his hand. "Was he?" "Very," Amara said. He stared at the river like a villain. Celeste looked up at Mateo. For the first time since she had known him, he looked almost embarrassed. "Almost." Celeste laughed, and something in the house changed when she did. The guards looked away. Dario smiled into his coffee. Amara ran back inside to finish frosting a cake that had somehow gotten onto 3 walls and 1 classified security report. Mateo kept Celeste's hand in his. The sky over Washington deepened to blue. Across the river, the city lights began to burn one by one, bright and fragile against the dark. Celeste knew danger was not over. Men like Crane never acted alone. Mateo's enemies would not disappear because he had chosen love in public. Her stories would make new enemies. His protection would make old ones restless, but for once, the truth had survived the night. So had they. Mateo turned her toward the river, his arms settling around her with the same possessive certainty that had once terrified her, and now felt like a promise he was learning how to make without chains. "You know," Celeste said, leaning into him, "the first time you looked into the camera and said I was under your protection, I thought you were ruining my life. I was saving it. You were complicating it. That too." She looked up at him, and now, his gaze moved over her face, no longer hiding the devotion there. "Now," he said, "I am asking if you will complicate mine." Celeste smiled as the last light faded over the Potomac. Then she took the hand of the most dangerous man in Washington and followed him inside, where a child was laughing, a storm was passing, and somewhere beyond the gates, the next secret was already waiting to be found.